In the heart of New York City, 26-year-old David Carter sat in a sleek, modern office lobby that felt more like a fortress than a workplace. He wore his only suit, slightly wrinkled from overuse, and held a resume that had been handed out too many times. This was his 30th job interview in just 6 months. Each one had ended the same way, with a firm handshake, a forced smile, and another rejection email that arrived just before midnight. Still, David held on to hope. As the HR manager stepped out and glanced at his application, her expression turned distant. She didn't even sit down. "We're looking for someone with a stronger background," she said flatly. No warmth, no consideration. Just another door slammed in his face. David stood up slowly, nodded with quiet dignity, and thanked her anyway. He didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing how badly those words stung. Outside, the wind cut through his coat like it had something personal against him. He walked down the crowded sidewalk, surrounded by noise and motion, but feeling completely invisible. His stomach growled, his hands were numb, and behind his eyes, tears fought to escape. He kept them in. Not here. Not now. People rushed past him on every side, heading toward their meetings, their offices, their lives. David had nowhere to go. No job. No money. But deep down, in a corner of his tired heart, something still whispered, "Don't give up." On the subway ride back to his tiny apartment in Queens, David sat in silence, staring at the reflection of his tired face in the window. His thoughts were heavy, his hope worn thin. Just then, an elderly man stepped into the car, struggling to balance himself while counting a handful of coins. He approached the ticket machine, fumbled, and dropped a few on the floor. No one moved. Commuters avoided eye contact, buried in their phones and headphones. Without hesitation, David bent down, picked up the coins, and handed them back. "Here, sir," he said softly. The old man looked up, surprised, and smiled. "Thank you, son," he whispered, voice cracked with age. David nodded and tapped his card to pay for the fare instead. The man stared at him for a moment, then said something David would never forget, "You've got a good heart. That's worth more than any resume." Those words echoed in David's mind all the way home. In a city obsessed with achievements and LinkedIn titles, someone had seen value in his kindness. That night, while eating instant noodles under the flickering light of his small kitchen, David pulled out a pen and scribbled an idea on a napkin, a platform for people like him, those who kept getting rejected, not because they lacked talent, but because they didn't fit a perfect mold. He didn't know it then, but that napkin held the seed of something extraordinary. Something that would change not just his life, but many others. With no money, no connections, and only a second-hand laptop borrowed from his neighbor, David began building the foundation of his dream, an online platform called Second Spark. Its mission was simple but powerful, to give people like him a chance. Those rejected because they didn't have fancy degrees, polished experience, or a perfect background. People who had passion, skill, and heart, but no one willing to believe in them. By day, David delivered food on a bicycle, braving snow and rain to earn just enough for rent and ramen. By night, he worked tirelessly from his cramped studio apartment, learning basic coding, designing a website, and reaching out to struggling freelancers he met in online forums. Many were skeptical, but some believed. Slowly, a community began to form. His first client was a small bakery owner in Brooklyn who couldn't afford a big agency but needed a logo. David paired her with a single mom from Texas who had been rejected by dozens of design firms. The result? Beautiful. The bakery owner cried. The mom cried. David cried. As word spread, more clients came. More rejected voices were hired, heard, and celebrated. David wasn't just building a company, he was building a movement. Second Spark wasn't about resumes. It was about resilience. Every success story on the platform became fuel for David's fire. Each one whispered, "You were never the failure." The system was. And for the first time in a long while, David felt not invisible, but unstoppable. 2 years later, Second Spark had grown beyond anything David had imagined. It had connected thousands of people across the country, refugees, high school dropouts, disabled veterans, single mothers, with meaningful freelance work and full-time opportunities. News outlets began picking up the story, the platform that believes in people, not paper. David was invited to podcasts, conferences, even featured in a small segment on national TV. But he stayed grounded, always remembering the subway, the napkin, and the 30 rejections. Then, one morning, an email landed in his inbox. The sender, a prestigious tech company that had once rejected him without even an interview. They were now facing a talent shortage and had heard about Second Spark's growing influence. The email read, "We would love to discuss a potential partnership or acquisition. Your model aligns with the future we hope to build." David stared at the screen, stunned. The same company that once saw no potential in him was now seeking his help. Irony had come full circle. Over the next week, similar messages followed. Companies that had ignored, dismissed, or outright rejected him were now offering collaborations, investment deals, and merger opportunities. Some even begged for access to his pool of talented freelancers. David responded to all of them with professionalism and grace, but one message he kept simple. "Thank you for reaching out. I'll get back to you, after I finish helping those you once overlooked." This wasn't revenge. It was redemption, served not with bitterness, but with purpose. The auditorium at Columbia University was filled with young dreamers, students, fresh graduates, and aspiring entrepreneurs, eager to hear from the man who had once been rejected by nearly every place they now hoped to work. David stood on stage, wearing the same suit he had worn to those failed interviews, now pressed and proudly worn like a badge of honor. He began his talk not with success, but with failure. He shared the pain of 30 job rejections, the hopeless walks through crowded streets, and the night he scribbled an idea on a napkin after helping a stranger. As he spoke, the room fell silent. No flashy slides, no buzzwords, just raw, honest truth. Then he shared stories from Second Spark. A teenage refugee who became a best-selling children's book illustrator, a former inmate now running a design studio, a single dad who finally bought a home. He paused, voice trembling slightly, and said, "We are not defined by our resumes. We are defined by what we rise from, and who we lift along the way." The audience rose to their feet, applauding. Some had tears in their eyes. And in the front row, sitting quietly with a soft smile, was the same HR manager who had once dismissed him in under a minute. Her eyes met his, and this time, they were filled with respect. David stepped off stage, not just as a founder or a success story, but as proof that rejection isn't the end. Sometimes, it's where the real story begins.